The moment I opened the front door, a strange smell assaulted me, poking my nose. Without thinking, I covered my mouth and nose with my hand and entered the house. It was not as messy as I had expected. Instead of going to the living room, I ran up the stairs and slowly opened the bedroom door. I am Naomi, 35 years old. It's been 5 years now. I think about the months that have passed since Ryan and I got married, and for the first time I think I understand the meaning of the phrase time flies. I had always been rushed into work and housework as if something was rushing me, and I thought it was a fulfilling life. I was just filling my time with busyness. When I realized how little I had left, I was stunned. My husband and I had no children. My husband was an honest man. He was the kind of person whose voice came straight from his heart out of his mouth without any filter. I found that comforting and refreshing. But he was also a clumsy person. Being honest is a double-edged sword. When I first met him, I envied his carefree smile and honesty. When we started dating, I was disappointed by his clumsiness. As I vacillated back and forth between envy and disappointment, I realized that the sound of wedding bells was shaking my eardrums as if it were someone else's problem. Now, 5 years later, only regret and disappointment remain. The reason I have not divorced my husband is that I hope to find something in the future that will eventually offset my regrets and disappointments. My husband cannot do housework. He can't do it at all. When I visited his apartment before we were married, it was the first time I saw a room where you could not see the floor from the entrance to the living room. I guess he has no concept of cleanliness in his mind. Still, there were rare occasions when the room was so neat and tidy that I thought I might have entered the wrong room. He had an older sister, Emma, who was close to his age. She was said to be a caring person. I heard that she had been taking care of him since he was very young, just like a mother. In a sense, she was overprotective. I have never seen Emma even once. She did not show up at our wedding, let alone when we were dating, and she never visited the house where we lived. What is strange is that I am the only one who questions this, and my husband does not seem to be bothered by it at all. It would be fair to say that I am overly concerned about it, but perhaps it is just because I grew up as an only child and do not understand the distance between siblings. I was worried about my husband's meager income, so I continued to work full-time after marriage. Working for a company that ran a gallery and bought paintings, I would go abroad once every few years to buy paintings and discover promising artists. In the past, my business trips have lasted 3 months at most. This time, however, the company asked me to go to Italy for 3 years and 3 months, which was a long period of time. After thinking about it for 3 days and 3 nights, I decided to go. I wanted a change. That's what happened when I went through the various reasons for deciding to go on the business trip. My fading love for my husband, the routine that never changes. Maybe I just wanted to escape from reality. Can you do the cleaning and laundry while I'm away on a business trip? Don't worry. I'll be a housekeeping master by the time you get back. I listened to my husband's unreliable rhetoric as I put up a list of garbage disposals for each day of the week, cleaning instructions, and a few easy-to-prepare recipes on the corkboard by the refrigerator. Even if it is a waste of time, I want to do what I can. My husband's personality is such that even if he starts doing the chores with gusto for the first few days, he will eventually start slacking off, and eventually this place will turn into a garbage dump. Big words usually end up with such a short ending. That is not what worries me. But if I told him what I am vaguely worried about now, he would probably just wonder about it. It's not the kind of thing that I have to tell him to make him feel better. Lying on the sofa, I can see my husband's whiskers as he watches TV. The house is too big for a couple to live in. The spaciousness is a good thing, but at the same time, its elusiveness makes me feel uneasy. I thought I would at least try to remember the peaceful scene of this moment. And so I set out on my journey. When I arrived at the Milan airport and passed through immigration, I sent a text message to my husband to let him know that I had arrived safely. Milan at dusk. In terms of time difference, we were about 6 hours behind the United States. Since he gets to bed early, he is probably sound asleep by now. Assuming that I would not receive an immediate reply, I headed for the hotel where I planned to stay. When I woke up the next morning, I found a text message from him. Bonjour, Naomi. That was the only reply. I don't remember telling my husband I was going on a business trip to France. I also told him the time difference between Italy and the United States. I didn't even feel like replying to my husband's innocent email, which could not have been intended as a light joke, and I left the room for breakfast. In Italy, there is no culture of having a hearty breakfast. At most, they have a cup of espresso and a nibble of croissant. Such a style seems strangely suited to me. Eating a hearty breakfast, even for a short time, as I do in the US, pushes me to work even if I don't want to. There is no such busyness here. After spending an hour or so at a cafe, I begin to explore the art galleries that, the town, as if I were going for a leisurely stroll. My husband emails me about once a week. Some days it is just a simple greeting, and other days he sends me a picture of a scene from his daily life with an attachment. Every time I reply to my husband's email, I ask, "Is there anything you are having trouble with?" But he has never sent me an SOS message about anything related to housework. I wonder if such peaceful days lasted for 2 years. In the meantime, I moved south from Milan to Bologna and Florence, and then to Rome, where I will spend the remaining 1 year and 3 months of my life. Rome is a city that is very tolerant of street art, and the walls of the city are painted with contemporary art as if they were canvases. The main purpose of my visit to Rome is to discover promising talents among young artists working on this kind of street art. What has changed in the past 2 years? I have been looking for change, but I have yet to see even the slightest sign of change in myself. Perhaps it is not enough to just wait for change. But there is one thing that has changed. Today I tried my hand at cooking a stew. With broth and herbs, you can make any ingredient taste good. It's a discovery. My husband's email arrived just the other day. For a while after we arrived in Italy, his emails had been like a child's diary, in terms of content and writing style. As the months passed, 6 months, a year, and a year and a half, the sentences changed at a dizzying pace, just like a growing child becoming a young man and an adult at once. At first glance, the content of the messages suggests that he is living a very fulfilling life on his own. He does his household chores without a hitch, improves his cooking skills, and leads a regular life. From a perverse point of view, it may seem as if he is trying to forcefully convey, "I am doing well, so there is nothing to worry about." If I had to use an analogy, I would say that my husband is being a werewolf boy. When I think of Rome, I think of carbonara. I tried to feel the same way as you, so I made carbonara for dinner. It was a little spicy with too much black pepper, but the rich flavor was mouth-watering. One day when I was thinking about my husband's email, which seemed to be a text that could be mistaken for a post on any social networking site, I suddenly realized something. I wondered why I had not noticed it until just now. I quickly replied to him. It looks like you are getting into the cooking game. Next time you cook something, please attach a picture. I'd love to see the look on your delicious face. I'll be looking forward to it. Yes, the emails he sends me are brilliantly written but without images. Going back to when I was in Milan, my first posting on a business trip to Italy, I saw the last one was an image of a ham and eggs so misshapen that I thought it might be a piece of modern art. I was suspicious. But then, the other me asked, am I not overthinking? I counterattack. Weighing the two sides of my argument, I decided to wait for the next email anyway. A week later, I haven't received an email from my husband. This is not unusual. Even in the past, I usually received about one email a week. However, even if it is the same length of a week, what is different from the past is that the passage of time includes the time when I doubt something about him. Time is included. Where is Ryan now? And what is he doing? And to picture him in the passage of time. I tried to stir him up, unusually, with my reply to that carbonara email. I knew he would get carried away and send me a picture of his skillful cooking the next day. Thinking back, I had never given him a proper compliment since we started dating or since we got married. I wonder if I did. I only admonished him for being like a child who doesn't know how to handle anything, only exclaimed in dismay, only sighed. He loves me. I may have been overconfident in that fact without any evidence. My love for him is only getting colder, but somehow I never thought he would leave me. For some reason, I had blindly believed that there was an inseparable bond there. A few days later, I still hadn't heard from him. But for the life of me, I can't bring myself to email him. Pride? No. Then why? I don't know. I passed the time by answering the other me with silence, who was asking a lot of questions. 2 weeks passed. I try to get used to the fact that I haven't heard from him. Am I being stubborn? No. Jealous? Maybe. Tired of waiting, I go to bed, and unexpectedly, I hear the sound of a text message on my phone. It rings. Thank you for today. I admire your knowledge of painting. By all means. I would love to work with you. There is a cafe near Termini station that serves delicious maritozzo. How about having tea there and discussing our future plans? It was not my husband. That afternoon, I had approached a young man who was painting street art on the walls of an abandoned apartment complex in the suburbs of Rome. The man, who introduced himself as Simon, had originally come to Italy to study classical painting techniques with a passion for oil painting, but was instantly taken by the street art he saw in Rome and decided to pursue this career. Do you feel like Picasso painting Guernica? I asked Simon as he looked at the black and white abstract painting on the wall. I knew you would think so. A mistake. I found it strangely endearing to see Simon smiling bitterly as he said this. He was rambling on about the concept of the picture he was about to draw, even though I hadn't asked him. It is pleasant to be pressured by the passion of a young artist who is just starting out. The fresh spirit of devotion to art seemed to inspire me in a direction I could never have imagined, even though I was still stewing over my husband. I was still in a state of shock over my husband, but it seemed to inspire me in a direction I had never imagined. Thank you for the invitation. I'm always ready. I replied and accepted Simon's invitation. I looked at my face in the mirror. The morning sunlight streaming in through the window faintly illuminates half of my face. My lipstick has fallen off. My lips. Before I left for Italy, I had put crimson lipstick in my makeup pouch even though I didn't think I would ever use it. And yesterday, before I went to see Simon, I applied it while looking in this mirror. After much hesitation and without finding a reason, I applied it. And now, there is no trace of the crimson color left, and I look at my lips exposed to the cool morning air. I look at them. The world calls it youthfulness to surrender oneself to a moment of reckless abandon, without knowing the reason, without trying to understand it. A one-night stand. But I am not young. I see my guilty conscience on my face in the mirror. Then, as if I had seen it, my phone rings. The text message was definitely sent by my husband. However, not a single word was written. There was only one image attached. An image that filled the screen with white paint. It looked familiar. After a moment's thought, I realized what it was. It is the ceiling of our house. 1:05 p.m. I looked at the date and time it was sent. Why such an image at such a time? I don't understand the intention. I immediately called my husband. Your call cannot be answered because the person is out of range or the phone is not turned on. I had just received a text message, but for some reason the phone was disconnected. I feel as if someone is watching me, even though there should be no one in this room but me. My heart beats, leaving the passage of time behind. What did my husband want to tell me, and why did he send me the picture of the ceiling? Why not a single letter? Bonjour. I would have thought it was an email from my husband's blood if only there had been a single word, even if it was out of place. I would have thought it was an email from my husband. Did my husband really send this email? Maybe it was sent from his phone by a stranger. No way, but if so, who on earth? As I continued my seemingly sterile dialogue with my other self. I call him again, and the inorganic voice guidance is still there. Again, only inorganic voice guidance is heard. I look at the image again. Upon closer inspection, I notice a thin scar in the corner of the image. I was sure I recognized the scar. I tried to recall the ceiling in the living room, kitchen, bathroom. Everywhere, but I could not identify where I had seen it. I can't identify where I saw it. That's true, too. I didn't live my life looking at the ceilings. I was about to give up when I turned over in bed and finally realized. It is the ceiling of my bedroom. It was the bedroom ceiling. My husband or some other stranger had sent me an image of the bedroom ceiling. But what good would it do to know? My other self whispers to me again. I'm lying there like that, but what can you do now? Leave it alone. Will anything ever get resolved? Will anything ever develop? You are always just waiting like that. Waiting for someone to come along and take you away somewhere. You come all the way to Italy and nothing changes. No. Naomi, what's wrong? ! I found Simon standing at the entrance of the room. The door was unlocked, so I went in and suddenly you started screaming. I was so surprised. I remembered that I had told him that I wanted him to pick me up when I was finished getting dressed. We had decided to tour the galleries Simon had recommended together. Did you have a bad dream? You must be a little tired. I'm fine. Well, why don't you take a shower before you go out? I'm fine. Well, let's go. I have to go. What? I have to go to America. What are you talking about? Naomi. I have to go to the bedroom. Simon is flustered. But I don't care. I pack the trunk with whatever I can find, check out, and get into the cab by myself. Simon is banging on the window of the cab. I told the driver to start driving. I didn't say a word until I arrived at the airport on a direct flight, took a train, and arrived at my doorstep. I didn't say a word until I arrived at my house. I didn't even know if it was hot or cold in the US for the first time in 3 years. I just want to make sure my husband is safe. Everything else in the world was like dust to me. I was guided by the voice of my other self that whispered to me, "After all, you haven't changed at all," and I stood in front of the house that had not changed a single thing since before my business trip. As soon as I opened the front door, a strange smell assaulted my nose. Without thinking, I covered my mouth and nose with my hand and entered the house. The house was not as cluttered as I had expected. Instead of going to the living room, I ran up the stairs and slowly opened the bedroom door. There was my husband. He was lying on his back on the bed. He was still with his hands crossed over his chest. He had turned into a brownish-black mass. Mummified, he was. I wanted to scream, but I didn't know how. I remember that this is how I used to make a scream, and finally, a muffled sob bursts out. A single, muffled sob spills out of my mouth. The rest doesn't follow. Not even a tear. I look at him, the man who has changed. I was the one who had to change. He went off on his own, leaving me behind. I looked up at the image of the ceiling he had emailed me, and saw a thin scar. He must have wanted to tell me something from here. I looked around for his phone, but I couldn't find it, at least not in this bedroom. I went downstairs and stepped into the living room to find a woman sitting on a chair and standing there in a daze. She is holding a phone that seems to belong to him. Our eyes met. Emma, right? She was probably in her mid-40s. She had a slightly long face with no makeup. And she looks a lot like me. I asked again, using the same words and the same tone of voice. Her voice came out without hesitation, as if it were a lie that she had been struggling so much earlier. I was certain that she was Emma. Are you the one who took Ryan? Yes, I am his wife. If I asked Emma anything, I doubt she would give me a straight answer. It was a strange smell in the house, and neither of us was in a decent state of mind. I'm here to get Ryan back from you. I see. What was the last thing he said to you? What do you mean the last thing? He's mine for the rest of my life. Well, yes. Unable to hold back, I ran out of the house. The strange smell that lingered in the back of my nose made me nauseous. Since I had not eaten anything since I ran out of the hotel in Rome, the only thing I could spit out was gastric juices. A woman passing by saw me struggling and called out to me. I said to her, "Call the police," and passed out on the spot. I woke up the next morning in a hospital bed. The drops from my forehead were falling at a slowness that would forever catch up with the passage of time. After a few days in the hospital, police interviews followed. Emma was taken away by the police officers who arrived on the scene, and she is still keeping silent. However, the fingerprints on the rope and other tools used to restrain my husband that were found in the house suggested that the crime was definitely committed by Emma. The policeman told me that it takes about 3 months for a person to be mummified. According to my research, my husband was most likely left alone for more than 6 months. I am sure that Emma was so worried about me that she impersonated my husband to prevent me from leaving the country in a hurry. And the picture of the ceiling in the bedroom was probably sent to me by Emma, who was asked to take a picture but did not know how to use a smartphone. I asked to see my husband's phone, but they refused, saying that they could not disclose his belongings during the investigation. I could not go home for a while and continued to live in a hotel. The day the police gave me permission, I stepped into my home for the first time since I found my husband lying in the bedroom. As if drawn in, I spontaneously went to the bedroom. The bed had already been removed from the bedroom. For some reason, the lingering scent of the strange odor was now endearing to me. I lay on my back on the floor and looked at the ceiling. Then, I looked at the wall beside me. There, I saw writing that was probably carved with fingernails. It was dimly lit, so I couldn't make out what it said. I turned on the light and looked at the wall closely. "Naomi, I love you." The words had been traced over and over again with his fingernails. Tears flowed unceasingly as I felt my husband's love for me. All I could do was cry and scream like a baby with all its jiggles removed. What did you think of this story? Please subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.